Sort of.
Okay.
I'll just copy that after.
Yep.
the fact.
Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call will show all members present this evening, and thank you for that. We have an agenda in front of us this evening. Are there any additions or corrections, Mr. Maya?
Yes, a couple, on the consent agenda, there have been 2 staff resignations, coaching resignations added. And that should be on your current copy that you would have in front of you. And then outside of the consent agenda in item 11, recommended actions, under workforce, we would add number 2, a superintendent agreement. There's extra compensation, extra duties pertaining to the high school principal duties, evaluation, suspensions.
Perfect. Are there any questions about that agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schoenrock, seconded by Ms. Tyre to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Don't believe, well, I shouldn't assume. Do we have any public comments this evening?
Where's that?
All right. With that, we will move into the superintendent's report. Mr. Myhock, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn it over. Mr. Kopetsky is at a music concert for his son tonight, and so he left some notes in the presentation. You can look those over if you haven't already, and some of the highlights taking place there. I guess I would mention too, just that I've included that information in the newsletters and whatnot, but we do have that music position filled for second semester from a mid-year graduate from Bethany College, and Mr. Kopetsky had to jump through some hoops along with Tamara Omar, who is the hire, to make sure that she gets her transcripts done, she gets it into Pelsby, she gets a license, and gets started as soon as she can after Christmas time. So then I'll turn it over to Mr. Berg, who's next here.
Even though it is only December, we are actually preparing for next year's registration. We got some new courses that we're going to offer, rewrite the course manuals on some of them, and then be ready to get those out to students in February. Winter activities are off and running. We had the blood drive here by the NHS. Some of you even donated. Thank you. The toy and the food drive for SCCLA and NHS brought in over 1,000 pounds of food. So, great job.
Good work.
Yep. We had our winter concert last Monday. The amount of academic awards that were granted to our fall athletes was mind-boggling. I think, honestly, the stack was probably 3 inches tall. So I want to recognize those folks. Pro Stars of the Future went up last Sunday, right? Last Sunday, in their preparation to get ready for the state competition here coming up. And on Friday, we have our activity day, our activity afternoon from 1 to 3. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Berg. Next up. Welcome, Macy.
Thank you. All right, today I'm just going to give a couple brief updates of the things that we've been doing, the special events that we've had. Then I'm going to dive into a little bit more in-depth look at our school age care program. But our preschool concert in Ellendale was last Tuesday at 6:30. Went off just beautifully again. Most of the kids were in attendance. You know, there's some sickness going around, but we packed the stands and everybody looked like they had a wonderful time. And then our next one is actually tomorrow at 6:30 in the middle school gym. We're going to do the Richland group. Last week was the Ellendale group. For special events, Cookies for Santa, we had Saturday, December 2nd, from 9:30 to noon in the lower commons here. That I was very impressed with the amount of people that came out. You know, the weather has a lot to do with it, but when we were, you know, just kind of taking a look at everything afterwards, we figured there was about 110 kids that had shown up throughout the course of that morning. That's the most that we've ever had, so that was excellent. Everybody always has smiles on their faces, and it's always a great time. For our youth dance program, we had a recital on Saturday, and again, I didn't get any pictures posted on here, but it was just fantastic. I haven't posted any pictures to Facebook yet, but we had a total of 64 dancers, and again, we had, I think, about 150 chairs set out, and then the bleachers on both sides pulled out, and I would say about 3/4 of the seating that we had was taken up again, so there's always just huge turnouts for those types of events that we have. So then for our school-age care program, I think last time I did a presentation, not all of you guys were on the board yet, but I just wanted to give just a real quick rundown of our school-age care from where we came to where we are now. And our the wraparound program we have is for kids ages 3 through 5, and then the school-age care program is bridges through 5th grade. So some of you may remember back in July 2019, gave a presentation to the board, and our school-age care program was approved for bridges through 5th grade, and then also our 4 and 5-year-old wraparound program. Then I came back about 2 years later, and we approved the 3-year-old wraparound daycare program. So this is just kind of giving you an overall look at just registration numbers from the beginning. So I'm sure most of you guys have looked through this, so I won't take up too much time. But in the green here is the actual registration numbers for our Panther preschool. And then the yellower color is the number of registrations for our school-age care program. And then the orange is just kind of an approximate number of average attendance per day. You know, obviously there's a difference between the number of registrations and how many kids you would actually see in the wraparound program on a given day. And then here are our numbers. So, you know, as with any program, you start pretty small when you're just starting out. And then this summer, we saw a nice big influx of preschools. And this is just our preschool age children that is represented in this diagram here. Click it too. Okay. So this is just kind of gives you an idea of our bridges through 5th grade. So in 2020, right before COVID hit, that's what our registrations had looked like. And then, you know, it's just been a slow increase up both the school year and the summer. Again, the green is the actual number of registrations we had, with the orange being the average attendance that we see. And this is just kind of a breakdown of our daily schedule, what the kids do in the morning, what they do after school. We like to make sure that they not only have time in the classroom just for arts and crafts and different activities, just simply playing. We also like to get them into the gym, outside. In this building, we go down to the wrestling room sometimes and let the kids play around down there, because, you know, who doesn't love mats? And then this is what to expect all the time. So basically, these are the needs that we've addressed. We want to make sure that we are providing daycare opportunities for our younger families that have preschool age children. Because we don't have transportation for preschool, specifically getting them to our program and back home, you know, 4 times a day. We wanted to utilize and create a school age care program to help ease that burden for some families, to increase overall revenue for the community ed program, which increases future participation for community ed classes, increases the utilization of our school buildings throughout the year, and now it's also helped boosting the school year and summer food service program meal numbers as well. So with our rules up here, we can technically take kids as young as 33 months old, but we do not, because the program is set up in such a way that only children who are registered for Panther Preschool can utilize the wraparound daycare. So those kids have to be 3 years old by September 1st. The only little bit of wiggle room that we offer families is that summer before, and then for sure those kids have to be 33 months before entering the program, which would mean they'd also have to be 3 years old by September 1st in order to register for preschool. Otherwise, we have 5 adult staff. 2 of them are full-time. We have 3 part-time adult staff. It fluctuates anywhere from 0 to 5 high schoolers throughout each year, and then we have a full-time coordinator. And the space utilization, again, I mean, if we've got space that we can utilize in the building that's not being used, we do it. Media centers, gyms, playgrounds, wherever we can get into for these kids. So this is just kind of a breakdown of the school age care budget over the years. Of course, with any new program that starts, our revenue is going to be less than our expenses, but we had a very healthy fund balance in community ed. So I was able to, take that risk in starting this program because it is absolutely vital in every single community that you would find. So then going from this year to this year, you'll kind of see a big increase. And that's simply because, word of mouth gets out there, program starts to grow. And this is the year that we also started taking our 3-year-olds as well. So that kind of boosted registration numbers there as well. And with any program, as revenue increases, unfortunately, so do expenses. And one thing that we had noticed is between fiscal year 21 and 22, we weren't able just to keep a 1 to 10, 1 to 15 ratio with our kids anymore, because some of the children had more individualized needs that we had to staff for, like a 1-on-1, 1-on-2, 1-on-3 for. So, that's why, a lot of times, we're still trying to get the budget balanced, but the expenses are higher than the revenue right now. And, we're working towards making sure everything is evened out, because generally speaking, school age care programs bring in an excess amount of revenue to help offset all the other programming that we have that that typically runs in the red, just because that's the way the programs are structured, but we're getting there. So then one of the nice things about a board-approved district-ran school age care program is that we qualify for school age care revenue. Now this revenue says that we are eligible to get additional monies for providing services to children with disabilities or children experiencing a family-related problems of a temporary nature who participate in the school age care program. So that basically means that if we have some kids who parents are going through divorce and they're having a hard time and they need a little bit more attention or individualized support, we're able to use this levy and this revenue to hire additional staff in order to provide the care that these kids need to make sure that they're successful in our program. So the first year that we started, and these are 2 years behind, so when we levy for the money, we don't actually see the money for about 2 years. So when we started, 2019 to now, fiscal year 21 is when we got the first amount of money, and then, I levied for the same amount of money for these 3 years because, honestly, our program enrollment was lower, and we just didn't have the needs that we do now. About 2022, we started to notice a very sharp incline in the individual needs for the kids that were in our program, not just for physical disabilities that some of the kids have, but in order for us to implement positive behavior interventions to make sure that these kids are successful with us, things like behavior charts, just 1-on-1 time, 1-on-2, 1-on-3 time, things like that, in order to give the kids the resources that they need to be successful with us. But so in about 2022, we started levying for about the maximum amount of money that we can to help provide more staff for the kids who need it. So right here, you're looking at anywhere from, I don't know, 1 to 3 kids per year that we had basically identified as needing extra support to, I don't know, anywhere from like 8 to 11 kids now. So I mean, there's a drastic increase. But I just wanted to get into a little bit more depth about our school age care program. Does anybody have any questions?
Do you see that trend continuing, that the kids that are needing special attention are going
Yes,
to increase?
absolutely. Unfortunately,
But
yes.
explain, we can't keep.
No, yeah, this is about where we're
About
maxed
maxed
out
out.
at.
You're
Yeah.
gonna figure out
So,
how to meet those needs in a
Yes.
different way.
yes, absolutely. So, you know, and it's, now that we have years under our belts and experienced staff, experienced coordinator, you know, I've been in this district for quite a while. I have absolutely no doubt we're gonna figure it out, for these kids, because we have maxed out the amount we have. But, yeah, that's what we get, and until we are able to start getting revenue for our preschoolers, this is just for, kids, you know, actual school age children, not preschoolers yet, which,
And I apologize if I've missed it, but why is that maxed out at a is that a state mandate type figure? That's where you'll run your community ed program at?
This
Based off of
particular
our size.
area, you can't
Got it.
levy any higher. You know, it's like safe schools, you can levy up to whatever it is,
Okay.
$36 per pupil,
Got it,
you know, otherwise.
okay.
yeah, and I've read it so many times, a lot of this is Greek to me, which is where Carla comes in.
Sure.
But I know that's where we max out at, so that's
Sure.
what we need to get.
That's where you put the brakes on.
Right, yeah.
Thank you.
Alright, thank you guys.
All right, for mine, a large chunk of my time goes into the compliance for the state statutes and mandates and things like that. And like today, we spent some time looking at the high school schedule for the new science standards and graduation requirements that are going into effect next year. And one of those standards is the READ Act that was voted on in the spring. And it's based entirely around this idea of what's called the science of reading, because you hear that over and over again. And it's the idea that there are a lot of different components that are needed in order to combine in order to increase the reading ability. Okay, a lot of this goes back to like the year 2000. A lot of this research goes back 20-something years. It was this big kind of battle between should we just be doing this, should we just be doing that, and the research shows that we should be doing all of it. And so that's what the READ Act is kind of surrounded about. Moving on to the next one. The READ Act timeline, this is where we are at with what we need to do over the next 3 years, essentially. This January, they're gonna let us know what curriculum is the approved curriculum. They're gonna list at least 5 curriculum that we can choose from for our K-3 programs. By June 2024, they're going to change the local literacy report that we need to do, the local literacy plan. In the past, they're switching it this year to include a lot of our screening data that we have for our STAR testing and things like that. By August, they have new, like I mentioned, the STAR testing. We can't use the STAR test anymore. We use STAR reading and STAR math. We need to use FastBridge or DIBELS, and we need to have that implemented by the fall. And so hopefully what will happen, the plan for that part of it is we get some quotes in for both of those. I've talked to the reading interventionist teachers and a handful of the elementary teachers about which one of those screeners really fits best for what we're working with. And it does seem like we're leaning towards the FastBridge, which is from the Renaissance Company. We would need to get a quote for that. I need to get some training for that. We need to get that kind of that ball rolling because there's a technology component to it as well. Starting by 2025, July 2025, we need to have, I think I did the numbers today, about 40 staff trained in one of the approved, there's 3 professional developments that are approved by the state that talk about literacy and how that rope that I showed you before, how to implement each of those things together. We have until July of 2025 to complete that training. If we choose one of the trainings, which is letters training, which we are taking a look at, letters is one of the gold standards. That is the top tier of training, because what it does is it's not just a bunch of videos you watch online. It has a component where you're actually practicing it in the classroom while you're learning it, so then you can go back and talk to your cohort about what you learned and watched online and read. But there's that implementation piece built into letters where the other two don't have that. That's a 2-year program. And so if we choose that one, the state will allow that date to be bumped because they realize we can't get it done before then. We are kind of up in the air on what these programs, all 3 of them, no matter which one we choose, because the state is paying for the registration part of it. They're paying for it through the service co-ops. So they are the ones who are scheduling the training, so we have to kind of see what they schedule they're very close to giving us some dates and information on that, so that we can start hitting a schedule and making some decisions on which one we choose. August 2025, we need to hire a district or regional literacy lead. In the READ Act, there's a specific wording on what that person does, and the MDE will provide a sample job description for that person. It doesn't have to, like they say, it doesn't have to be just in our district. We could do it kind of like we're doing the SPED director situation. We could do it in kind of a cohort. 2026, that curriculum that they tell us about in a month, we need to have it implemented and in place by August 2026. And then this training that we have for pre-K to 3, the rest of the staff needs to have it by 2027. There are some people that won't have to have it, but there's a large chunk of the staff that are 4 through 12 that will have to have it as well. That was a lot of information all at once. If you have any questions, I have this practically memorized. But send me an email if you don't have any right now. But
The training for the 30 to 40 staff from our school
in
July of 2012. You said that registration is paid for. What about the stipend to train those people?
That is on us.
Okay.
That is so all 3 of those programs have 2 components. One is a do this reading or do this online thing, and then we will come together and we will talk about it. And I can only speak for, I happen to know Mankato's plan for this is that they are going to be paying, they're not paying teachers for their time where they're doing the reading or they're watching the videos. That is, they're doing it on their own time. They're paying them for the stipend for that 6 hours they have to meet in person, because it won't be during the school day, it'll be at night or on the weekends.
Okay.
And so they're paying them for that time, not for the study time.
We've already announced that.
And I think part of that rationale too is this is a requirement now to be a licensed teacher in the state of Minnesota, that as you go into your college classes and whatnot, you have to check off all those boxes and you have to do this to be a teacher. Now this is something very similar. If you don't have this training, you don't meet the requirements to be a teacher in Minnesota. So it's kind of a big one, obviously a very expensive one, and the state through this READ Act is kind of pushing that down and changing the requirements to be licensed.
So how long, how many hours of training is it?
So it's tough to say because there's so much reading and watching videos involved that they give a range. But for letters training, it would be about an hour a week where they would need to be reading or watching videos, and then about a half hour of implementing that into the classroom. And then after every 2 months, they meet for 6 hours, that in-person cohort. For core training, I never even looked at carry-all just because of where it was at. But for the core training, it's similar. It's 14 weeks and it's a couple hours a week that they would be expected to. It's about the same amount of time per week that they would be expected to be watching videos or reading materials for. So, Carry-all hasn't finished their staff development program. Like, they got approved to be on there, but it's not complete yet. So we don't have a full view of what it would look like.
Is there a committee working on this, or how will our district establish route to go?
I am going to have a meeting at the very beginning of January with the 40-something people at the elementary. Well, there's about 30 people at the elementary and about 10 people at the secondary that we need to take it.
Right away.
And so I'll have that meeting in January just to talk about those options and really probably try to sell letters because it is the better program. If it's 140 hours of training compared to like core, which is 50 hours, and somebody at the curriculum meeting said, well, if you play the tuba for 50 hours of practice and you play the tuba for 150 hours of practice, it's going to be better. So it also, with that idea, if all the other districts are doing letters training in this experiment and we are doing the cheapest, fastest one, like what does it look like in 3 years when we have open enrollment? If scores are looking different because teachers have had a different level of training, what does it look like when somebody from our district moves to another district? Are they going to want to get hired because they only have core training instead of letters? Or are kids going to want to move to a neighboring district because their teachers will train longer? I don't know those answers. But letters it's been around for 4 years now, and people have been on the it's been on the people have been taking it and doing it. And Keto jumped on this bandwagon quite a bit ago, so they have a little more leeway where they have some higher trainers in their district, so they can do the training whenever they want. We don't have any trainers for any of the programs, so we will have to go through the service co-op to do these.
Do you think it might be wise to have some people go through and?
Because everyone's going to be doing it at the same time, it might be wise to send a couple people like the first time through for the first batch, so that when we have to do the second batch, we have it. That might not be a bad idea. I hadn't thought of that.
Because is that the same thing that will come over then to the secondary? Or is that a different program?
So it is very.
Similar framework.
It's a similar framework, but it's very low. And
Right.
so yes, while we do have some low students at the secondary level, you're really dealing with it in a much different way
Right.
at the 8th grade level, let's say. So it is suspected that those trainings will look a little different. But we don't know, because they don't exist. A lot of these things, they don't exist. They're working on it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, hours a week go into this type of discussions,
Yep.
training, meetings, every week, just had to get a grasp and stay on top of it.
They said they have an FAQ that they update about every 2 weeks because they know people are just waiting and jumping at the bit for information. So they update every couple weeks. So it's exciting. And they changed some clarifications as well. There was a point where they said everybody was going to have this training, and so no offense, there's no reason that she would need to have literacy training on how to teach phonics. And so it has been changed to 4th through 12th graders that teach ELA standards. So they're working on fine-tuning the language throughout the process as well. All right.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
So
All right, does that conclude?
No, I have a couple things
got a
I'd like
couple things,
to
well,
mention
we
and
don't
bring
know.
up. So,
Short view.
the first one, I received some notification from MSBA that we have, and they sent along a certificate of recognition for Pat Tyer for completing the School Board Association Workshop Series 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, congratulations, Pat.
Thank you.
There you are.
Thank you.
And then I gave you 3 different handouts that I'd like to just kind of walk through here. The first one, it should be your NRHEG. And again, I had some information in our newsletter that there is a vote that is due by the 31st of December. Our district has 3 votes that we can cast, one from the superintendent, one from the teachers union, and one from the school board. And excitedly, or good news is that we do have a teacher, Cynthia Gale is running for, or put her name into the category for the teacher representative from our district for the NREA board. And so what I'd like you to do is fill out this ballot. I'll collect them at the end of the meeting. I'll tally the votes, and then I will, or probably the clerk could help officiate that, and we'll submit the ballots. Charlie's prepared to do that for the teacher's rep. I obviously would do that for myself, and then the board, we can put all 3 votes in together at once. I don't have any advice for you on the number 6, the administrator.
If I could interject
Yeah.
for just a little bit, I think some of you may recognize one name there from past, interviews, so, yeah, pay attention to that a little bit, not that I'm trying to influence, but she did interview here, remember?
Yes, I
Yes,
do.
so, just a little background there, so, great.
So if you can do that right now, at the end of the meeting, you can do that.
Yeah.
Right, need another job here.
Nope.
Great, thank you.
Then you should have a form that looks like this. It's the field trip request form, and some of those areas are highlighted yellow. Just kind of information that this came up. Mrs. Olson submitted her paperwork, I guess, the grant on her next Spanish club trip. And I was looking that over and whatnot, and had this on my mind for a few months ahead of time, that some additional questions would be needed. And so we're revamping that request form, and those areas, again, highlighted yellow, are some of the new areas or other questions that are being asked that would be part of that request that then come to you for approval. This is for extended overnight trips. And so some of the big questions are, again, just the number of days absence when they're in school, what travel company is being used, and that kind of correlates down to, again, the cost of the chaperones, how many chaperones, how much extra students are paying for the chaperones, and some of the extended trips, just so we have a better idea of what's really all goes into that trip, and not just kind of the surface information, but a little bit more in-depth information. So this is the form that we're going to be using moving forward.
Does this include when they go to like Eagle Bluff and that too?
No, I think like the Eagle Bluff trip, there's a different form that kind of goes along with, there's a couple others like that. State tournament, you think, or the wrestlers aren't they currently at an overnight trip? And so there's different forms for different occasions that may be used, but this would be again for like this Spanish club, social studies, history club, things of that sort. The next bit of information or handout would be the extracurricular and co-curricular positions, and This is nothing new. We have a Schedule C under the admin NRHEG master agreement, and I included that segment of the extra duties. This is part of the language, the agreement that's been in place for quite a while, but some of those positions, there's a lot of positions listed on that Schedule C, and are all of them filled every year, and so this gives us a better overview of those positions. Are they filled? Who fills them? And kind of the process. And you'll see again on that extra duty assignment that there are some details on here, and in essence, this is a 1-year agreement that that position will be filled for that next coming school year. So we haven't gotten into a lot of details with the principals yet, but basically we'll continue on with what we're doing, but let's make sure that we're recognizing staff members that may not want to do that position next year. We want to survey if there's any other staff members that are interested in filling one of those roles, and then the principals will work and kind of put the recommendation forward, or recommendation together to bring forward to the board to get the approval in probably the late summer, early fall of every school year. And kind of the same process will happen with the activities department as well, with the directors and coaches under the Schedule C that are also identified in this. So I think it's just some cleaning up. It's kind of putting this together and getting a better grasp on all the different positions that we have and who's filling those positions. Any questions on that? And then lastly on my list, I just wanted to make mention again that we do have our organizational meeting on January 2nd. That will be our typical meeting that we have every year. Following that, we will conclude that meeting, adjourn that meeting, and I'd ask you, unless there's any objections, that we'd have hopefully a short study session after that. And the agenda that I'd like, that we're preparing right now for that is the 25-26 school year, which again I've shared some information and some quirks in scheduling. Some preschool compensation, again Macy's talked about their budget and some of the financials that go into the licensed preschool teachers that we have, especially as compared to our licensed staff under the admin master agreement. And then the last thing right now on that list is some POSIP information. Amy, Aaron, and I sat through a webinar on this POSIP. I put that out there again, it's positive gossip. It's POSIP, and it's a tool, an app that can be used, potentially be used for better communication, better input, or better gathering input from our students and our community members, and just something kind of different, new, and something that I'd like to throw out to you to see what type of interest there is from the board. Now, the one webinar that we sat in was a sales pitch by a good salesperson. And it looks good, it looks interesting. There's probably similar types of programs out there. We're looking at what our current JMC program has, how they could potentially do some of these same things, but it's at least a starting point on some discussion. So, Aaron and Amy, if you have other thoughts on that, but again, that will be part of the agenda for that study session, and we can talk through that as well.
Well, you covered what we talked about. It was interesting.
Yeah.
But it has dollar signs attached to it.
Yep.
So we didn't get all the information, we just got the overall sales pitch, but she gave us we had some good questions for her, and then she was able to answer most of them, but still had.
It's a good tool.
It could be kind of fun.
Yep.
I mean, not fun, but it could be resourceful for us too, so.
So we'll line something up to get a little bit more information on that, throw at you. And that's it for my report.
Thank you. Board member comments. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share this evening?
I attended the recital for the community and dance program, and it was terrific. I would say it was really a lot of fun. Thank you, good job, yeah.
Rick and I attended the kickoff meeting or beginning of the organizational meeting for the FFA Alumni Association, and just like to put a plug into that. We have a meeting set up for the organization of it on January 3rd at 6 p.m. here in the Lower Commons. So encourage anybody interested in agriculture or the FFA program to attend.
I think Mrs. Ressler is
Promoting. Good.
Doing her nudging at sporting events.
That's excellent. We would like participation in that, so, yep, be good. I also want to give an update, I think back in August or September, informed the board that we would be negotiating with Mr. Mayak on an additional 3-year term. As we're all aware, his contract expires this next summer, and we want to be ahead of that. Just an update on that. Terry Engel and I are well into negotiations with him, and they can be happy to report that they are going well. We think we have the monetary section of that pretty well completed. Slight increases for the next 3 years, so just a few language things that we want to be accurate with and make sure that it's good for both parties. So watch for that potentially on the January meeting if we get our homework done here too. But and if there are any questions you may have between now and then, please feel comfortable reaching out to either Terry or myself. So.
That long already?
What's that?
That long already?
Yeah.
Time flies, yes. Anything else? All right, we have, as Mr. Mayak said, organizational meeting Tuesday, January 2nd, followed by perhaps a work session or study session there. And then I hope everyone's aware of the MSBA conference January 11th and 12th. I think Sue is doing a fantastic job of getting us prepared for that, so hope that everyone can attend that up in Minneapolis. I think we're doing the Melinda this year. It's a nice change of events there. So thank you all there. And then we will have our regular board meeting January 16th at the elementary school over in Allendale. It takes us into the consent agenda items, and I would like Mr. Mayak to address those, please.
Yeah, the board has been furnished with background materials on items included in the consent agenda, or it has been discussed at a previous meeting. These items will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. If a board member wants to discuss any of these items, we'll pull it off the consent agenda. We will vote on it separately. But before we do vote on that consent agenda, I'd like to recognize the donations made to our district this past month. Did we get clarification on the one? No.
That is the name written on the deposit slip.
Okay.
Just go with it.
All right, so we have Curtis Swenson family donated $500 to the media library and media book purchase. And then we have a large number of donations made from families or businesses for our cheer team's national competition trip. We have Thompson Sanitation donating $50, Main Street Dental donating $50. We had an anonymous donation of $200. Geneva Meats donated $250. Sorensen Appliances donated $250. L&D Egg Service donated $250. Miskin Auto Parts, a $100 donation. Ellendale Cafe, a $250 donation. TNT Body Shop, a $250 donation. And our Auto Repair had a $40 donation. Neighbors Meats donated $100. FM Bank, $50. KFS of Hope had a $250 donation. Arcadian Bank, a $150 donation. Pioneer Seeds with Mark Bernard, a $100 donation. Dennis Lee Pressure had a $100 donation. Geneva Lumber, a $1,000 donation. Bioplastic Solutions, $250. Keene Bank, $200. Cole Chiropractic, $50. Wagner Foods, $250. Olson Construction, $100. Lonnie Corbin, $1,500. Again, these are all for the cheer team's national competition trip. Two of them that were near and dear to my heart, we had Janicky Seeds donate $250 to our DECA chapter, and Finley's Wings at Works donated $1,000 for our DECA chapter. And Finley's Wings at Work did stop there. They made another donation of $2,700 for our elementary teacher supplies, and then a $1,000 donation for our music department. All that generosity adds up to $11,240 for this month alone, bringing our total to $49,748.91. So with that being read and appreciated, I'd ask for your consent or your approval on the consent agenda as it was presented.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Motion made by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Ms. Erke to approve the consent agenda items as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into the recommended actions, we have Rachel Shu, the school nurse reduction to 0.8 FTE. Mr. Mayak, please.
With a new family member and the fact that we have Carrie Petzinger on board as well, that Rachel had requested a reduction of 0.8 to make her a 0.2 reduction to make her a 0.8 FTE employee, and I'd ask for your approval on this request for reduction.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Phillips, seconded by Ms. Engel to approve the Rachel Shu school nurse reduction to 0.8 FTE as presented. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Again, in somewhat negotiations with Mr. Myhock, Terry and I have brought the attention of, under our current administrative situation, we're happy to have Mr. Berg along leading our secondary. However, we were aware of the fact that his license wasn't current at the hire, and the hope is that that will happen here someplace after the first of the year. With that in mind, Mr. Mayak has been assigned to do some of those assignments that I believe we're all familiar with, just for a sampling, suspensions, some high school staff evaluations, things of that nature. Feel free to add here,
No,
Mr.
that's
Mayak.
mainly the teacher evaluations and the suspensions, discipline suspensions.
So with all that in mind, and in fairness to our employees here, we have before you tonight a $5,000 stipend, which actually would be paid out $1,000 per month, starting with September and not to go beyond January. So the total would equate to a $5,000 payment there for those extra duties. If there's a little bit to keep it in our minds accurately is the fact that Mr. Berg was hired at a reduced rate, with that in mind of not having his current principal's license, but under the circumstances, again, excited to have Mr. Berg work toward taking those responsibilities over in the near future. But in fairness to Mr. Mayak, who is indeed doing those, we thought it was appropriate to bring that before the board here this evening. So feel free to ask questions, either Terry or myself or Mr. Mayak.
I was just gonna clarify, did you say that would begin in September, this past September, and go
Correct.
through January 1 or January?
The payments are structured to be paid at the end of the month, so obviously some time has been elapsed here, so I would say the end of January or the beginning of, or at the end of December, excuse me, he would be paid for September, October, November, and December.
And that coincides with Mr. Berg's licensure,
Okay.
Right.
completion, license, receiving the license, things of that sort. approximately
In the final,
a few weeks into January.
the final payment then would be issued the end of January under completion, so. No pressure on you, Mr. Berg, but get your license. So, but no, I think it's been a good working relationship, or at least from what we see as a board, or I see as a board member. I applaud, I think it's great for the district, what we've had. And again, there are still some savings experienced to the district, even with that additional compensation. Obviously, Mr. Berg was not hired at, nor should he have been hired at a licensed principal salary. So the net to the district is actually, I think, somewhere between around a $4,000 savings, and we negotiated that with Mr. Mayak and came to this to bring before you. So, any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve that agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Tyre, seconded by Ms. Erke to approve the superintendent agreement for the 23-24 high school principal duties as presented. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I think we've all been briefed on this over the course of the last number of years, but the speakers and cameras throughout the district are insufficient, I think is a pretty polite way of putting them. Mr. Mayak and perhaps Angie would like to talk on that subject here this evening.
Yeah, actually, the next three items that we have are all getting some final or initial approval, or at least recognition and understanding of moving forward on some of the projects or some of the budgeted items. So the first one here with the speaker and camera project, approximately $270,000 is needed to complete this complete overhaul of the speakers and the cameras. And both systems are well past their prime and maybe not even functioning at this point. That it absolutely is needed, and something that we will have to get done in time. So LTFM and general funds will be used to pay for the project. Angie continues to work on quote requirements and breaking down projects per site, what's LTFM, what's general fund, things of that sort. After this approval or potential approval, the board would again be asked to approve the final scope of the work and the cost there once that all becomes finalized. But this first approval is needed so we can push forward knowing that it's supported by the board, and a lot of obvious work is going into it. And if this is nothing that the board is looking at right now, then we don't want to put that work on, that burden on the providers and the quotes that we're receiving. So I'm asking for your approval to move forward, knowing again that a final approval would come when the project is ready.
So looking at this would include the inside and outside cameras?
Yep. And this one that you have, or that's attached, this is the draft right now, that there are cameras in all 4 of the gyms, that there is speakers, I think it's 2 different speakers in all of the gyms. And so, you know, one philosophy on this is if we're gonna do it, let's do it right. The other, you know, thing that we're looking at is, you know, what's the need for 2 speakers? We have some questions that we asked them, that if, would one speaker truly not cover the entire gym? You know, so things like that, again, that's the part that Angie's working on and dealing with the providers right now.
Well, part of that $270,000 figure is also the door access control, a new fob system.
Good point, yes, thank you.
I'm not sure that's an expensive portion of it actually
Yeah.
too. I mean,
Yeah.
for district-wide, the fob system.
Yes.
Okay. And the age on that is probably quite,
On the fob
on the
system? or
fob system, anybody know it's been a while, not that it matters, but some of you employees probably remember, but yeah. Ongoing beauty of having electronics throughout the district, their life expectancy is not that long anymore. But I bet that's 15 years anyway.
12 or 13, I would
Okay.
say,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were here before Doug was here because the fobs, because
Oh, they
I
were?
set the alarm off and now Bill and Dan had to come.
Save you?
Yeah,
I do have all that information too.
Yeah, and
If
then
you want.
mute point probably.
Does our fob system log in who's here and when they came, when they left? Or will the new one?
I think currently we do have access to that too. Like, yeah, when you fob in, it does log that. Yeah, I think both Mr. Berg and Jean Greenwood can attest that the fob system is a mess.
Yeah.
It needs some updating, so.
And the cameras too.
The cameras as well,
Cameras
yeah.
were never,
Yeah.
never,
Yeah.
and the speaker.
And the PA system, especially over in this
PA
building.
system was, yeah.
Yeah.
We can't hear you. So, yep.
Well, it sounds like the need is there if we're comfortable with authorizing the, Mr. Mayak and his staff to move forward on research. Again, I picture this as, once we get the bids, that will again come before the board and it will be broken out of the actual cost of that and then we would approve that. But Mr. Mayak brings up a valid point of, he wants a gauge of the board of, there's interest moving forward here, so these people don't put a lot of time into something that we can't support, but it sounds to me like it's a needed project and quite possibly for some time.
Well, over the years, I've heard several concerns about the speakers and the cameras in the school, so I think it's a good thing to move forward, and so I will move that, allow the administration and staff to move forward with pursuing the camera and speaker project in both elementary and secondary school.
I will gladly second that.
Motion made by Mr. Shudrock, seconded by Ms. Tyre to approve research on the speaker and camera projects throughout the district, including the fob system. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Also, it's been brought to our attention that our kitchen freezer unit in the secondary building here is inadequate space-wise. Mr. Mayak, could you tell us about that, please?
Yeah, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say it's probably about half the size as what's needed. And again, some of that's with the increase of meals that are served and the deliveries, and when they come, that honestly, that freezer is packed to the gills. The walkway is up as high as it can be, and it's time to get the appropriate size. We're probably talking about $50,000 once all said and done to come in. There'll be some rearranging or different rearranging in that custodial area. And I guess again would be LTFM expenses. And so with your approval, we would proceed with this purchase sooner rather than later. We did discuss it at our board's building and ground committee meeting, and the members recommended to move forward and seek the approval of the school board for this purchase.
I'll make the motion to approve.
second.
If I could interject here, we do have a motion on the floor by Mr. Mueller and seconded by Ms. Engel. Once again, we would be researching bids for this particular
Yeah, correct.
project, and then we could expect that
Yeah.
actual contract to come before the board for
Yeah, I
our
apologize.
approval. But this would be moving forward with the research portion
Yeah.
of the project, and then we would,
All three of them, you're correct. I
great,
should have
okay.
mentioned that.
No, and
Same with
just so
the
we
next
understand how the system will actually work there then, but yes, it does sound like, again, we're in a section of the school building that is much needed and some improvements, and some of this I think you missed that we did have during the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting was we're excited that participation in our school lunch program has increased, so this is exciting, similar to Macy's programming at Community Ed. When we see growth, that is a great thing, so yes, any other additions or other comments before I call for a vote on moving forward on the research here? Motion made by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Ms. Engel to approve the kitchen freezer unit secondary. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And kind of following that same pattern of issues that we're experiencing here throughout the district, pickup, and then again back to the buildings and grounds committee meeting. Mr. Schuler is obviously our buildings and grounds person. We've talked with him on several occasions of equipment needs that he can see as a benefit of helping the district keep their grounds in adequate condition. Mr. Mayak, would you want to elaborate on that just a little bit?
Just a little bit, that this money, a little bit different than the others, this money has been budgeted, and that was part of the approved budget. If my memory serves me right, we're at $41,000 was part of the initial budget for these types of expenses and purchases. So again, once we get to that earmarked level, I believe it's $25,000, and again, the board will need to approve things, but this one was on the budget, which again makes it different. But as we're moving forward and whatnot, if we're just recognizing or if we're getting the approval, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page and aware that we'd like to move forward and continue to pursue the purchase of potentially a new pickup truck and some other equipment that could include a Bobcat utility vehicle, maybe a scissors lift, but staying within that budgeted amount or reporting back on the final numbers.
One question, like this pickup, is that part of a state program, like we've gotten vans and stuff too?
Yes, there is that available, and some of the quotes that we received fit within this budget. Looking at those prices of a new one compared to part of the investigation or part of the searching is to see what's out there for used vehicles that could be less costly and equally as safe and sound and everything. But yes, there is a state bid for those pickups that we would look into.
Just back to update the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting that was discussed, and Mr. Kapiski during the conversation got online and wow, here's a low mild kind of fit what they were looking for type thing, potential. And again, you need to go look and research these vehicles, see what their story is and if the savings is there, because Richie bring up a good point. We do have that state bid type savings for new vehicles, so we don't want to go out and pay more for a used vehicle. But I think if we could authorize the superintendent to research this and up to a certain rate on the pickup or a certain figure, in the event he could find that used perfect vehicle and have some savings, give him a little leeway there. The new vehicle purchase really isn't any urgency. That's throughout the year. Is that right, Carla? Or
Yeah, I got those quotes like last summer.
Okay.
And I don't know where new vehicle inventories are. If
Sure.
we go through something like we did with that
band,
18-month ban.
right?
But what we found is that the used vehicle market has really dropped.
Softened. Yes.
So
Right. Might be the
shocked when we started looking at those.
right.
Since August.
So if we gave them some flexibility to research that and the other portion of that in the equipment end of it, in conversation, again, not many staff members will we tell to go out and find some equipment they could use to enhance their program or their world. And I felt Scott Schuler is a little bit premature on saying exactly what he can use successfully within his department. I think what we kind of said as a committee is research some of that. We brought up some ideas of vehicles that like municipalities or other school districts are using, and I don't quite see the urgency on approving something in the equipment area, but I would like to see administration have some authority to, you know, if that deal is sitting out there, like Carla said, on a used vehicle that's 15 miles down the road and that presents itself, perhaps be able to move without waiting till next month's board meeting to have that actual purchase approved. So a lot of talking there by me. I will let some of the other board members talk if they so choose, or Mr. Meyer.
No, that's wrapped up, summarized well.
Do you feel a $30,000 like upper limit on a pickup purchases gives you some leeway to on looking at some of the things, or that dollar amount, does that?
Would you clarify again for us that the approval is at the $25,000 mark that says we need that final approval? You know, now it is in the budget,
Right.
so it's a little bit,
Yeah.
kind of goes both ways on this, but if it's
Right, but
over
he's-
25,
Like if they decide to set it at 30 and we found just pick up we want, it's 29,000, we would make sure we found some other used pickups with similar stats that were close to that 29,000, so we can justify in our file, well, you know, Mankato Ford had this one and Demo had this one, we bought this one, it was all in line. So if they gave you the approval, we can still get a couple quotes and have it in a folder for that.
In back to the other question, there is a dollar amount that administration has just authorized that they don't need to come before the board, but this would exceed that figure. Yep.
potential, or most likely.
Right,
Yeah.
yep.
What's the procedure on, can we do an email vote or an electronic vote of some kind if you do? Is that even a possibility for the board if you find something?
That's 31,000?
Yeah,
I see a couple of no's, and
Yeah.
she just got that certificate, so she must.
Right.
okay. Obviously, you can see I didn't take that one.
No.
No,
That, it would be considered a board meeting, and it would have to be
Okay.
posted in an agenda, and
Yeah, that's right.
so, but
We
that's,
have a few other meetings coming up,
right.
you know.
It,
we don't know if they-
And I think, you know, the leeway we do have here is that $41,000 has been approved in the budget on items such as this that are what I would consider quite large, in the 20s, potentially, I think, need to come before the board in that actual contract. You know, for instance, wasn't the one 26, 27,000-ish for a pretty low mild?
Mhm.
So yes, could it be that 31, 32? I feel very comfortable with our administration still watching for that great deal out there. So even if we put a not to exceed 32,000 on the purchase of a truck for the next 3 months, I feel that gives them the authority. We are abiding by the School Board Association's rules of having that. And then you go out and shop that amount is the way I would see that happening. And again, I'm picking that 32,000 figure out of the air. If it's a new one, we move into an approval that Carla gets a quote through the state and we go that route. But
Would you agree that if it's a used vehicle for 24,000, we move forward, it doesn't meet that threshold or the standard set, and then we can move forward with it? If we have some action tonight that says we're giving the permission to purchase a new vehicle that stays within the approved budgeted allowance, then again, we find that one that's either through the state or on a parking lot somewhere, and over 25,000, we can make the purchase. Would you agree?
Yeah, I really think there's plenty of used good inventory now,
Right.
that was not there a year ago. And there's some needs for some other things you've mentioned, like the citizen stuff, so I think there's a real desire
to find a decent use, so
Right.
32 is fine, and then get more bang for our dollars
Right.
and get a few more pieces of equipment.
And then that scissors lift, I think Scott has
Is doable.
expressed from a $6,000 to a $10,000 purchase there perhaps, and that would free up, again, that would be under the threshold, but,
And that one actually would free up, I think it's $2,500 that's on the one quote that we have right now for the speakers and cameras that they're charging us the use of them renting a scissors
Absolutely.
lift to complete this project, and we've used it at least 2 other times in my stay here that I'm sure we're $6,000 in
Oh, for
Right.
sure, yeah.
right.
scissor lift rental,
Yeah.
over including this one, that
Right.
it makes sense to get our own.
I guess I would, even with that 41,000, in the budget, I would like to see something in the neighborhood of that $32,000, not to exceed 32,000. Let's give this a month and let those guys go shopping, see if they can find that. That frees up, if that happens, that frees up 9,000 to move forward without our approval on the scissors lift, if that's same. And then we will let Scott research some of that equipment that he perhaps could be to our advantage to own as a district as he continues to grow in his position here as buildings and grounds.
So you want a motion to approve administration to purchase a pickup truck not to exceed the amount of $32,000.
Thank you. That was a great motion. Do we have a second to that great motion?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Ms. Erke, seconded by Ms. Tyre to allow administration to move forward on a pickup truck purchase not to exceed $32,000. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Appreciate that, and that does bring us to our levy certification this evening. Back to Carla or Mr. Mayak?
Yes, because there's a couple of new people here, we're gonna go over the old PowerPoint again.
It was exciting.
Yay!
Go for
That second one on there, that levy report, I do like to always remind you guys, you can study that, that's, you know. Page 30 is the actual summary of this levy. And then, you do have a motion, correct, that matches that,
Yes,
that final slide that I showed you?
yeah, to approve the 2020, or the 2023 payable 2024 levy certification as presented is the way the motion reads. So, we do generally put a number in there. Is that,
Right, so, okay, I don't have a copy of the motion.
$2,401,912.23.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
That's in the motion.
okay,
perfect.
sorry, I might have missed it.
It's on the motion that
Oh, verification.
our board chair will read with the whereas and the thereofs.
Oh, boy. We're not out of here yet.
It's a
Fill
pretty
your
short
coffee
one.
back up. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. All right, whereas pursuant to Minnesota statutes, the school board of NRHEG School District in Richland, Minnesota is authorized to make the following proposed tax levies for general purposes. General, $980,192.08. Community service, $128,309.83. Debt service of $1,293,410.32, for a grand total proposed school tax levy of $2,401,912.23. Now therefore be it resolved by the school board of NRHEG School District in Richland, Minnesota, that the levy to be levied in 2023 to be collected in 2024 is set at $401,912.23. The clerk of the NRHEG School Board is authorized to certify the proposed levy to the county auditor of Waseca County, Minnesota. Do we have a motion to move forward with that?
I make the motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Moved by Ms. Tyre, seconded by Ms. Erke to approve the resolution as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Concludes the business of this evening. We would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Nice practice that. Motion made by Mr. Phillips, seconded by Mr. Schoenrock to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you everyone for coming.
If I can have you pass your ballots this way, I'll
Oh, ballot.
take care of that now.